All right, we can go ahead and get started now. So I'm going to give a soft introduction to Kyle Newman. He is from our pre-law advising team, and he's here to help kind of aid a lot of our students that are interested in going into law school and some of the resources that we're going to need in order for you guys to be successful in that area. If you want to go ahead and take it away, anytime.
Okay, cool. Yeah, welcome everyone. It's great to meet you. If I haven't already, I know that met a lot of different students, and so today I'm going to be sharing my screen in a second. I'm just going to be going over some pre-law basics. I'll touch on some of the different degrees you can get with that are in the legal field, and talk about law school, and then the admissions process, and then we should have time for questions at the end if you have any. I can just take those at the end just to make it a little easier because I'll have my screen up and it'll be harder to go back and forth. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is just Exploring Law is the official name of that. Yeah, I'm one of the advisors. That's a little about me. I have 2 master's degrees from FSU and Florida State, and then a bachelor's in political science from the University of North Florida. I've been pre-law advising. This is my second school year doing that, and so I've been with ASU itself close to 3 years, 2.5 years, getting close to three. I'll just round up. Getting close to that. At ASU, I was working in Res Life a little bit before that and taught high school before that as well. Um, my supervisor, Mary, she also does work with the pre-health. She's the associate director at the Future Center. So she oversees pre-health and pre-law at ASU. She does take appointments on occasion when we're a little bit busier. Are also same thing with pre-health. So you might have interacted with her in pre-law as well. You might also see her at some law events that go on as well. But she tends to work with pre-health and pre-law as well. And she was past president of the Western Association of Pre-Law Advisors, which I'm a member as well. I didn't put that on there, but I've been doing that for over 2 years as well. And then also the Pre-Law National Council, we're both members of. So like I said, I'm just gonna be going over degrees, things you can do right now as an undergrad, and then application basics, and then just some next steps that you might consider. So being a lawyer. So we're gonna start off with talking a little bit about being a lawyer, what lawyers do. So this is a little shortened version. If you want more about the American legal system, I know we have some great classes at ASU and in the POS realm that could definitely give you a little bit more info. But basically, law is enforceable rules governing relationships among individuals, between individuals and their society. Laws, of course, come from federal, state, local, municipal. Towns have laws. There are different regulations. Laws, of course, made by man in the United States. It's not from God or from any other type of way. And law is interpreted by the courts to determine. So whenever there's a lawsuit regarding any type of law or regulation, or people are suing each other, it is up to the court system. And there are a lot of different types of court systems and appropriate venues, which if you go into a POS course, you would learn about the different ones. But a quick summary, it's the federal, which in most cases don't go to federal. It's federal. Um, State and then local courts, which could be county courts, it could be city courts. It just depends on each state and their jurisdiction. But it is from the common law system, which is similar to England, which of course formerly colonized the United States. So we borrow a lot of similar rules from them for our court system and laws. Louisiana is a little bit different. I won't go into that. But if you did want to practice law in Louisiana, they use a mix of the French civil system and the United States English system. So lawyers as advocates are advisors. So a quick summary of what lawyers do. They do a lot more. There are a lot of different subfields and different avenues you can go into. You can start in one field and go into another. But here are 2 basic things that lawyers do. The advocates are litigators or trial attorneys. And so criminal attorneys spend a great deal of time preparing for and going to court. So that would be criminal cases when someone is accused of violating a federal, state, or local crime or regulation. They would hire a criminal attorney to work on that. And there are, of course, criminal attorneys who might specialize in separate fields. And the people on the other side would be the prosecutors, who again could be state, federal, or local. Civil attorneys depend on the type of law practice. So this is where you get into a lot more niche areas like maybe environmental law, immigration law. They could also be criminal as well. But business law, sports law, contract law, employment law, anything like that. What they do generally, and of course it can depend on each, they research legal questions, draft persuasive arguments, preparing for and taking deposition, and negotiating settlements. So there's a lot of negotiation involved. In just being a lawyer in general, but especially with a civil attorney, you may not go to court as much, if at all. Um, and so you'd be going, not necessarily breaking a law, but you might work on contracts for collective bargaining between unions and people, for one example. Or if you're interested in sports law, you could read the contract, between a football team and their players and draft that contract. Same thing like Hollywood agent. Advisors are referred to as transactional attorneys. So these people, many advising attorneys never go to court. They spend no time at all in court. That's not part of their job. They provide more of a counseling role. So, like for example, a corporation might have an attorney in-house or hire out a firm to be their in-house attorney. So they might not actually go to court. They might just say, okay, we want to implement this new regulation because we're a bank or a financial institution. Is it going to violate, the laws of federal laws or any international laws or anything like that? If we decide to implement maybe this new product or try this new thing, are we going to go against a regulation that was just passed, in March? And so they would have those attorneys who would look through and give them an opinion and say, yes, you can do that, or no, actually, we need to scale this back and work on something else. And so that's kind of the other realm of what attorneys do as well. So it just depends on what type of attorney you are and what firm you're working in. And so this is where the work environment of lawyers was. So I pulled this January 2023, but in 2021, this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the United States. The largest employers were legal services, so that would be law firms, for example. So over half of all lawyers work for a law firm. Self-employed workers might be people who have their own business. So maybe it's just you're a lawyer and you have a paralegal or an assistant, and that's it. Or you have two or three, or that's kind of what you do. You just work for yourself. You take on a few clients and you run, your office out of your home office, or maybe you rent an office and you kind of just work by yourself. Local government, excluding education and hospitals. So this would be a city or a town. State government, this would be, of course, a state, any of our 50 states, excluding, of course, education and hospitals, and the federal government would be 5%. So you can see the majority of lawyers work in legal services. They work for a law firm. And anything that doesn't add up would be even lower percentage. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be a government lawyer, work for the federal government. Well, 5% of them actually end up doing that. And so that can also help you kind of figure out your goals and what would be realistic as well. Lawyers, of course, mostly work in offices, but there is some travel involved. It is a service profession. So often you might have to go to if you're working for a corporation or just a person, you might have to meet them at their office. So you might have a office here in Tempe, but your lawyer's in Glendale. So your lawyer, but your client's in Glendale. So you have to go drive over there, and that's where you have to meet them at. Or you have to go to court. So, but your office is in Tempe and you live in Mesa, so you drive, downtown Phoenix because that's where your court is, and you have to go there. When they do face heavy pressure during work, for example, during trials or when trying to meet deadlines, a judge gives you have 3 weeks to file this, no exception. So you might be working a lot more during those 3 weeks. You might be working over 40 hours because you have to meet that deadline, or you could be in contempt of court, or your client might lose the case and and you can get, in trouble or fired or hurt your reputation if you can't meet deadlines. So it can be quite taxing. And here are some realities. Cases can take months, if not years, as you've probably seen in cases in the news lately, or just in the past, oh, this case got delayed 3 months. It got delayed 2 months because we found new evidence, and so now it's delayed and we don't know when a case might start. Same thing can happen if you're working at a really busy jurisdiction. You're working in New York City or Phoenix or Miami where there's tons of cases going on. your case might keep getting pushed back because there's not enough judges, or the judge had to go on vacation, or something happened. It's mostly reading, writing, and doing paperwork. So there is public speaking, obviously, when you go into court, so you'll need those skills, but a lot of it is just reading and writing. So like I said, you spend most of your day writing pleadings, memos, and letters. You would write your case to the judge and you have to submit it. You just don't sit there and argue for 5 minutes and then the judge knows everything. A lot of times the judges will have your written out arguments and they can clarify during hearings. Most lawyers lose their crusade for justice. A low percentage of law grads actually end up in public service jobs, as you saw in that previous slide. 5% Fed, 6% state, 7% local. So most lawyers do end up working for a for-profit law firm, which make their money through billing. And so you do billable hours. So you had a client come in and they talk to you for 40 minutes. And so you bill them for the 40 minutes. And that's how your firm or you get paid. The client wanted to talk to you on the phone. And so a lot of lawyers will bill them for that. You want to schedule a Zoom call for 20 minutes. Well, now I have to bill you, X amount of money because my rate is every 10 minutes it costs, this much. And a lot of that is set by your firm, and can be based on, other factors. Obviously, if you're employed by yourself, you would set those. But if you're at a large firm or a firm and they say this is our rate, so if your client calls you and wants to speak officially, then you would have to charge them that much. And so that's just a little bit about the job, but some degrees in law that are common that you may see. And we'll just start with the most common one, which is the JD, or Juris Doctorate. This is the first degree in law. And this is the one we'll really be focusing on today. Bachelor's degree required to pursuing degree. You are required to sit for the bar licensing exam after you finish your JD. In most states, Washington State recently changed that. You didn't need a bar exam. You could do an apprenticeship, but you would still need to go to law school, I believe, or have legal training. You would just do like an apprenticeship of like a certain amount of hours that you wouldn't have to take the bar exam. You would still have to prove that you essentially interned for a lawyer for 300 hours or something like that. It just came out a few days ago, but some states might be moving to that, but most you're expected to pass a bar exam, and your law school will help you get ready to pass that. The LLM is after a JD, so this degree helps people who already have a JD or equivalent degree. Say you're from France and you want to study in America, but you already have a law degree, you would do the LLM. This expands their knowledge or study a specialized area of law. These are usually 1 to 2 years. So you could say, I did a JD, but now I want to specialize in only healthcare law. And so that's all I'm going to focus on with that program. And a lot of times, if you get an LLM, you can become a law professor yourself. Master's degree, these are newer, so the career outcomes aren't as well known, but many law schools have started offering these. A lot of these can be done online or in person. These are usually 1 to 2 year degrees. Things like a Master's of Legal Studies or a Master's of Human Resources and Employment Law. So those are a bit newer, so we don't have clear outcomes on those yet, but that is something new that some schools have begun offering. And then the final one is paralegal. This performs specially designated legal work for which a lawyer is responsible. So if you got this certificate, you would be working with a lawyer in their office, helping them on cases, helping them prepare depositions, maybe writing legal documents or proofreading them. You often might have to drop something off at a court. You could also work at a courthouse. This does require a certificate, usually from a community college or a university. Our different accredited program. You can do this online or in person. Almost every community college offers a certificate in this, and some universities do offer that. ASU does not. University of Arizona does. It's online or in person. It is free. You don't have to be a U of A student to do it, but if you are interested, there are different programs for that. And so a quick overview of law school. So law school is a 3-year full-time program upon completion of a bachelor's degree. There are about 200 ABA approved law schools, and there are limited part-time, hybrid, or online options. If you do like a part-time option, it's usually about 4 years. There are some schools that are online, about 10% have hybrid or online options. So about 10% of 200, so about 20 or so have those options, and they are relatively new. There's a few that are just purely online, maybe like 5 or so that I know of, but those are also available. It'll prepare you to understand the law. You'll learn legal analysis and reasoning, legal research, problem solving, written oral communications. You'll exercise a proper professional and ethical responsibilities to your clients in the legal system. Also, other professional skills needed for competent and ethical participation as a member of the legal profession. So you'll learn, if the judge says you need to do this, you need to do that, or what could happen. Or, if you don't represent your client correctly, you could lose your license or get your license suspended and not be able to practice law anymore. And so you'll learn all the intricacies of how to be a proper lawyer, including the classes and skills you need. So the law school structure, it's a 3-year program. I'll just do the 3-year program. This is what the 3-year program is like. So there is no defined curriculum from school to school that you have to take by the American Bar Association. A lot of law schools are similar, but there are some that have their own program that do things a little bit differently. So this is where, if you were interested, you would need to research the school, like go to their website, talk to admission reps, and figure out, what that school is actually, offering there. Grades may be determined by end of semester exams with little feedback through the semester. So a lot of different classes you might have, a handful of assignments and that's it. You probably won't have, weekly quizzes or weekly homework. You have a few big assignments essentially. Students will be likely placed into a cohort and move through their first year together. So what a lot of schools do, especially for bigger schools that admit more people, they might say, we're going to break, we have 200 incoming freshmen, so we're going to break it up into groups of 20 to 30. And just so you'll take all your classes together with that 20 to 30 or 20 to 40 group of people, for example. But of course, that depends on the size. Obviously, if you go to a smaller law school, they might not have as many. Students may be ranked and graded on a curve. So not all law schools do this, but a lot of them do. They rank their students and grade on a bell curve. Again, not every school does this. A lot of schools are moving away from this, but this is how a lot of law schools traditionally been done. And rankings may determine opportunities and encourage competition. So that is what some schools do, is they release their rankings. A lot of schools have stopped doing that just to make things more equitable. But again, you'd have to look into each school to see how they actually handle that. A good piece of advice is that most graduates find jobs in their region, part of the country they live in, or locally or regionally. And so if you, for example, you want to be a lawyer in New York or New York or New Jersey, or it'd be best if you went to a school around there initially because you would have more opportunities. A lot of times, what law firms will do is they'll hire people out of their 3rd year of law school. Oh, you're interning with us. We really would like to keep you on and bring you on. So that's saying if you know you want to relocate, it's a lot easier to do that because a lot of law firms will come directly to your school and hire people through career fairs and internships and things like that. So it's a lot easier to make networking. Not to say that you couldn't, relocate. You might have to pass a new bar exam or take a different one than your peers. You wouldn't have necessarily as strong of career connections that some of your peers who might be staying in that same region. So this is a little bit about the first year. Again, it's different, but for if you're doing a full-time first year, this is one ABA requirement. It's that you can't work more than 20 hours a week. It is a American Bar Association requirement. It is not a school requirement, but for schools to maintain their certification, they have to follow what the ABA says. So it is full-time in person unless you enroll in a part-time or evening program. Most law school classes are scheduled kind of like, during the day. Some schools might offer some things at night, but most, if you do full-time, can expect that your class might be anywhere from, 8 a.m. to most likely from 8 a.m. to, 5 p.m. normal business hours. There might be some at night, but in general, you should just expect that. Law students will rely on, like I said, career services to assist in placing you for a job or an internship and interviewing. Some of the common classes you can see, you start general your first year, and then your second and third year, you get to start picking more of specifically what you'd want to do. So like maybe you want to do criminal law, but your first year, you still have to take civil procedure and learn about property and learn about torts and criminal law and contracts, and legal writing and legal research methods. And so you would start your second and third year, you would start to more specialize and actually get to pick your classes for the most part. Generally, schools will generally pick your classes for the first two semesters usually, are have like a strong, like you need to take these classes your first year, kind of like what you did if you started as a freshman here at ASU. Your first classes were mostly picked from you with little input, or just depending. So now we moved on past that, and so we can talk about what we can prepare as an undergrad. And so students from all majors are accepted to law school, so you can major in justice studies, art, biology, political science, English, bioengineering, anything you want. There is no required major or minor or classes that you need to take. They don't have a checklist, and if you don't take POS 110, you're not getting in. They don't have anything like that. So you want to develop skills is more important than what you study. So big thing is critical reading and writing and grammar. Those are really big aspects of it because you will just be writing most of the time. It is a writing profession. So definitely work on those writing skills, making sure you're a good and effective writer. Ambition, motivation, and drive. Law school is really tough. Make sure you actually know that you want to go, that you have the motivation to finish. Learn how to network with professionals. So learning how to talk to professors, learning how to talk to coworkers, learning how to talk to classmates, having those good communication skills. And then the same thing, improving mastery of professional reading and writing. So working on those if you're in everyone here mostly is in justice studies, so you do a lot of that reading and writing. But if you were, doing a science major, then you might, supplement your classes with, a more research or writing. And you learn the law while in law school. So they teach you how to be a lawyer in law school. They're going to train you how to do that. So you're not expected to know, every court case and every criminal law and code for the state of Arizona or anything like that. And then choosing a course of study. So pre-law is a pathway and a resource, not a major. So there's no pre-law major or pre-law minor. We're just an office here to assist you with applying and going to law school. How do I choose? So if you're wondering how to choose a major, think about what you would like to study. What are your strongest subjects? Law schools want students who are strong in reading, writing, and critical thinking. Campus doesn't matter. You can be an online student. You can be a West, Tempe, Polytech, Mesa, California, Washington, anywhere ASU has a campus. What about required courses? Like I said, there are no required courses. You just need to have a bachelor's degree before you start law school. There are no people, but even though people always ask us, oh, well, are you sure there's no classes I should take? There's sure none that you think would be good. These are some that we've heard, we've done some research and talked to some students and professors, and this is a list that we have of some classes that a lot of students do take that seem to help them, that we've gotten good feedback from and talked to some professors about. As you can see here, principles of sound reasoning. There's a few English courses. There's even more than that. These are just two of them, but these two are about writing, and especially with persuasive issues. Law 210 is a good class. It is Introduction to American Legal and Business Law. That class is usually reserved for the first few weeks for students in the business law major because it is offered from the College of Business. And so that is a course that if you can get into it, that hold usually lifts, after a few weeks after registration opens. Again, you would just need to check the course search. And then a big course building on that is Foundations of American Business Law, which again is usually you need Law 210 to be able to actually register for that course. Political science is a great one. There are a lot of courses on there. We have so many, a lot on like the Supreme Court. There's one on constitutional law. There's some on a lot of different topics that could be helpful for you. Obviously, if most everyone here is in justice studies, they have a lot of good courses. I know there are a lot of courses on the courts system there I've seen before. So, don't be afraid to, use that course search feature. And if you need help, you can always talk to your academic advisor about, getting help with that or reach out. So the help desk, looking for courses if you need, a refresher on the course search. But there's a lot of great things out there as well, including religious studies, history, and philosophy as well. And consider taking classes that will challenge your assumptions and encourage growth in reading and comprehension and written skills. So, what I often tell students, especially juniors and seniors, a lot of law firms and law schools and graduate schools look at your last 2 years. And so if you met most of your requirements, but you fill up with PE or physical education to round out your last few classes, it tends to not look like you're not challenging yourself. So I do caution about that. I know, you might take those for fun, but like if you needed 8 credits and okay, I'll take, a 1 credit PE, but I might want to take, an extra elective that's a 300 level just to help myself. That I'm in that you're interested in. It might doesn't have to be in the courses mentioned, but I usually do recommend that because they pay a lot of attention onto how you structure your last 2 years. So success. So I will be frank, the GPAs keep going up for a law school. A competitive GPA is considered a 3.7 or above. That's just how it is. It's rather high, I know that. But average GPA for students accepted range from 3.0 to 4.0 at different schools. There's 200 of them, so every school has different requirements. The average GPA of a student admitted to the law school last year, I believe, was about close to a 3.6 though. 3.55, 3.6 for all law schools. So you want to kind of be around that range if you can. Getting involved, get engaged in an internship or a job. You have your internship coordinators here. He can definitely help you out finding an internship. We have career services here, and it can be in anything that you want it to be. So if you're, justice studies, but you're interested in, environmental justice, well, maybe interview, have an internship, but look for nonprofits that work on the environment or governmental organizations. Anything that you're interested in. See if you can join a research project. This is where you can meet your faculty and ask and see maybe they have a research project and can help you with that. Become a member of a club on campus. It can be any club or organization. It doesn't have to be, it can be student government. It could be chess club, video games, anything like that. Volunteer with a service organization, nonprofit, or other cause that you're interested in. And so a lot of law schools do specifically look to see who does volunteer work and helps out with their community, being that this is a service or a service profession, and that a lot of law schools actually do require you your second and third year to do free legal work in order to graduate. And so if you've already helped out at Humane Society and walk dogs or help out at sort donations or anything that you're actually interested in. And then learn about the law. You can do that, through just following the news. You see a legal case, read about it in the news, see if that piques your interest. You'll learn more and be able to apply that, of course, later. Read what the lawyer said, make sure you read that, actually read the article just to see, okay, that's what I saw on, as I was scrolling my feed and I saw that law case. Actually read it, get into the details, read another article, see what, is actually happening in the case and how you might approach it. And then as we start to wrap up, I'll go over the application basics. And so these are the basic steps. We also have the steps on our pre-law website and on the LSAC, which is the LSAT website. They also have much more detailed information on how to do all these things on their website. But you apply through the Law School Admissions Council, the LSAC. That's how you apply for every school. So every your application would be on their website. Your undergraduate GPA, so your transcripts essentially, is what you would need from any school you've gone to as an undergrad for college credit. Not high school, but if you take a class at the summer at a community college, or you got dual enrollment there, or you transfer, every single college credit needs to be sent over on that you've done. Your GPA locks after graduating, so with your bachelor's degree. And so even if you do post-bac or, take a class for fun or, try to improve your GPA afterwards, it's going to lock, you graduated with a 3.7, that with your bachelor's from ASU, they're not going to count anything afterwards. They'll look at it and say, okay, I can see you've done, or if you do a master's, they'll see that, but it won't count as your official GPA. You need an LSAT or a GRE test score. The LSAT is accepted by all schools, a GRE about half. That just depends on which, school you're applying to. The personal statement are essay questions. A lot of schools have now moved to essay questions or subparts recently, so that's also something to think about. You also need a resume. 2 letters of recommendation is required by most schools. Some have it optional, but most it's required. They generally prefer from if you're still applying while you're still in school, usually professors or teachers who you have taught you in college. It can be any subject. It can be your justice studies professor. It can be your your art history professor. It doesn't matter. Other things you may see, and this is why it's super important to go to the school's actual websites and see what they actually require, because every school is different. There might be a diversity, equity, inclusion, or inclusiveness essay or statement, or there might be just extra school created questions that they're giving you the chance to answer. Some ask you why you're applying to our school. Sometimes they might actually require it as a part of the personal statement or as one of the required essay questions. It just depends. And then some do interviews. Usually those would be requested of you. So you might apply, and then 2 months later, you might hear, hi, I'm Dean Smith from George Washington. We're setting up group interviews. Would you like to interview with us? That it's not typical. Most people don't get an interview, and if you do, it's actually a really good thing. That means they really want to hear from you and might be leaning towards offering you admittance. And so I'll go over the LSAT. I won't touch on the GRE because it's not as frequently used. But the LSAT is required for admissions to all law schools. It is a 4-hour exam. About. There are 4 total sections. Students do not know which section will be tossed as a variable, so 3 of them are scored. 1 is experimental to use for test validation and other research purposes. They don't tell you which one. There's a writing sample. It's unscored. You have to do this either before or after you take your first test, and that is unscored. It is timed. It is about 30. It is about now, if you took it, to be about 35 minutes, but if you take it in August or later, it's 55 minutes. There are 3 multiple choice question sections: reading comprehension, analytical reasoning, or logic games, which will be removed after the June test date. And so what they're going to do is double the logical reasoning section in August and after. So it'll be 2 logical reasonings, 1 reading comprehension, and then 1 experimental. It is offered 8 times per year, so it offer quite frequently. And all those dates up in between now and June 2025 are available on their website. You will be able to register for August to June, starting in May. They just don't have the registration opened yet. And as I wrap up the LSAT, I'll just go over this really quickly, so I make sure I want to leave time for questions. One of the most important factors in admissions. So if you don't have a competitive LSAT score, it can be hard to get into a school, no matter how high your GPA is. If you score, you would also want to look at the school's range of what they accept to see what would be good for the schools you're applying to. Most schools just base it on the highest test. So if you took it twice, they would look at whatever the highest one is. The scores are 120 to 180. An average score is between 152 and 155. Scores are valid for 5 years. You can take the 5 times over 5 years and 7 times actually in total. Currently, it's $222. Registration closes 6 weeks before the test date, and that includes if you're looking for accommodations or a fee waiver, you have to apply for that before that 6-week deadline, and they outline how to do fee waivers and test accommodations as well on their website, and it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward on how to do it, and they actually have support, phone numbers and appeal process if you'd ever get denied for one. And so I'm going to do a timeline. This is a typical timeline of when you want to apply. I'm not going to do it by like your junior year, senior, just because most people now actually apply at a year or more after they go to law school. But just for the purposes of this, determine when you want to start law school. Let's say fall 2027, that's when I want to start. 9 to 15 months prior. So for example, fall 2025 or spring 2026, you should prepare and take the LSAT. We recommend 3 to 6 months of studying for the LSAT. That's generally what's recommended. So that's when you should take your first attempt. And that the reason why you want to take it so far ahead is that it gives you time to do retakes. If you took your first test and the application you wanted to apply, the next day and you didn't get a good score, then you would end up pushing your application back. And so we don't really want to do that. We want to give ourselves, grace and time to improve if we didn't get the score we wanted. 6 to 12 months before, you generally want to apply to law schools. It is recommended that if you're like, for example, applying fall of 27, you apply during the fall of 2026. That's because applications start to close as early as like February 1st for some schools. Same thing with scholarship deadlines. They might be around that date as well. And so the statistics actually show the earlier you apply, the better chance you have of getting in. And there was a study that was done by a nonprofit that came out and showed that it was definitely the percentage chance was at least 15% chance, better chance if they had applied between September and December versus January or later. So you want to give yourself that best advantage. 3 to 6 months, review acceptances and pay seat deposit. Orientations are usually in the summer or a week before school starts, and then you would start after that. You do have to pay a seat deposit just to ensure that you actually go, and it usually goes towards like your tuition. And so that's why they do that, so you would pay that. And so there are some of the costs. Law school is expensive. Unfortunately, they do have fee waivers and fee programs. The LSAC, if you do get a fee waiver, you actually get their test prep free, their entire suite of test preps free. They currently have Law Hub. They have actually practice tests and drills and assessments available for free if you make an LSAC account. And they used to have it on Khan Academy, but they moved it all over to Law Hub. And so they have a free version where you get a lot of free stuff that used to be free on Khan Academy. And so, but they also have like a paid one that's like $100. But they do have free stuff on there as well. Structured online or in-person prep courses can range from $750 or more. There are some that do like a paid monthly subscription, like a Netflix, for example, type of deal where it's, you pay $59 a month and you can use it whenever you want. Applications, there is a credential assembly service, which does cost $200. It combines your letters of recommendation, your transcripts, your class ranking at your school, and compares you to everyone else at ASU, and combines all that for you. And law school reports are $45 from the CAS. And then law school applications are anywhere from $0 to $100. A lot of schools have made their application free, like ASU Laws is currently free. And for example, and a lot of other schools I've seen have actually waived the application fee entirely, just for anybody. And some actually do if you sign up to be contacted by law schools when you go to take your LSAT. Many will send you a free application waiver. So they'll say, hey, if you apply to our school, you can get that. You can apply for free. The costs, which it is quite a bit. The average tuition, and I pulled this in 2023, and they had last updated most of it. It's pretty accurate. It's probably gone up by now. But the average tuition for when I pulled this in 2023, about a year ago, was $28,000 for an in-state school. That would mean you're a resident of that state, to $49,000 for a private school per year. And that's just tuition. The average debt after graduation, $119,000. I've seen it even higher, but this is without interest payments and undergraduate student loans. So if you had any interest occurring when you take out your loan, this is not including that. Law school cost of attendance, you'll see, is the tuition, the cost of living, your car, transportation, rent, utilities, anything like that, plus books and materials. The scholarships are available. Most are based on academic merit, usually how well you do on your LSAT and your GPA. And those come directly from the schools. There also are private scholarships that you could search for from organizations and nonprofits and companies that do give out free money and grants to students. And then the other option would be federal and private loans. I know some people want to know about law-related opportunities. These are 3 that are associated with Arizona State University. There are more out there, but I just want to highlight 3 that we do have at ASU. The AZ Legislative and Government Internship Program. Interns are placed at various agencies in the state legislature, governor's office, and Arizona Supreme Court. During the spring semester, there's actually been a program that does it. You can do actually every semester now. There's a newer program that I've seen that this one is more of a state one, but there is one that's just local to Maricopa County, and their info sessions are this month. I think it's through the Watts College, but anyone can apply for that one. That one is if you're just interested in working for the Maricopa County government. You receive with this one, the legislative internship program, a tuition and fee waiver, a stipend, and course credits. There's a Capital Scholars program. Students live and intern in Washington, D.C., and an organization of interest to them. And then you attend a weekly class. And Project Excellence is open to Barrett Honors College students. You have to apply through the Barrett College to take a class at ASU Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law alongside current law students. I believe you have to have finished your 2nd year in Barrett, but they've redone their website and took their page down, so I don't have the specific requirements anymore. But usually I've heard you have to at least finish your 1st year, at least I believe. But you do have to apply to it, and the classes are subject to what the law school makes available. So it's usually like there are 4 classes you can pick. Is usually how that works. It's usually not, you can take any law class. And so this is a little kind of repetitive, but developing skills, maintains relationship and teamwork. Had you dedication to service, integrity, honest, and trustworthiness. So thinking about, have you experienced or unpacked ethical gray areas, or had your integrity challenged? Do you have experience working on a team? Being a lawyer is working with people every day, working on a team, interacting with paralegals, other lawyers, even when they're combative. You have to remain civil. Do you have experience, where you went above and beyond, or did volunteer service, or anything like that? And then you might also think about who could write you letters of recommendation. Some more tips about researching, exploring law. I did talk about, actually, reading the news. That's a good one. You can actually do informational interviews with lawyers. So reach out, say, hey, I'm an undergraduate student at ASU. I'm really interested in, learning what you do. A lot of lawyers might grant you an informational interview to talk to you. You can attend law-related events. There are law admissions panels. Schools come to ASU in the fall. There's a law school fair in the fall every October. That's where you can talk to law schools in person. A lot of law schools actually host like virtual meetings on their websites monthly. I know ASU does one every other Tuesday, every month, for example, if you were interested in that law school. But other law schools do a lot of similar things as well. Their books like 24 Hours with 24 Lawyers. There are a lot of blogs and websites and YouTube videos and vlogs with lawyers. Explore your interests as they relate to a law. So if you're interested in politics, join a campaign, environment, do research. There is I Am the Law podcast by Law School Transparency that actually sits down with lawyers to discuss their jobs, and they have a pretty long archive. So they have things from environmental lawyers to a lawyer who works on in a nonprofit to a warrior who works for a big law firm. There's a lot out there. There's pre-law clubs at ASU. I would search to Sun Devil Sync for those. Pre-Law Society, Mock Trial, Black Undergraduate Law Society, and the Undergraduate Law Association. And then attend workshops, events, and more. Law school fair, like I said, student panels, law school panels, and info sessions, and then application and personal statement workshops as well. A lot of these events do go on in the fall because that's when that's when application season opens up. And so most of these events do occur usually between September and November though. And next steps, here are some of the resources we can help you out with at the pre-law office. We can talk about different majors, curriculum overview, clubs and orgs, research opportunities, leadership, application review. When you apply and you have questions about your application or you have a personal statement you want to be reviewed, if you have questions about, different schools, you're debating between schools and you want some feedback to bounce ideas off of, we can talk about that as well. And then that's it. That's our email. It's prelawadvising@asu.edu. If you ever have any questions, either me or Mary will answer that and get back to you. Our office is located in the Future Center. We do Zoom appointments as well. We also have appointments in person in Armstrong Hall. Okay, so I'll stop sharing. So that was a lot, I know. But I tried to get everything out. I finished, about 15 minutes. If you have anybody have any other questions about anything?
If any of you guys are my students that I advise, you guys all ask questions about law, so this would definitely be a good time to take advantage and ask. We have 10 minutes left, so we do have some time.
Hi, I kind of have a dumb question.
Mhm.
For the registration fee, do you have to take it 6 months before you plan to take the test, or can I just like pay for it now and then eventually schedule the test?
No, I think you have to pay when you scheduled the test.
Okay.
Yeah, it closes 6 weeks before. So like if you wanted to, when it opens in May, if you know you're going to take the November test, you could register for it between now and the registration deadline. You just can't. I don't think they just accept payment, so you have to pick a date.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
You guys can also put in the chat if you guys feel a bit more comfortable asking your questions there as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's more like of a date. You said if we want to apply to law school, is it a year prior to doing it?
Yeah, that's when it's advised. And so applications like for example, fall of 25, open up fall of 24 is when they open up, usually around September 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, and the deadlines vary. So each school has a very specific opening and deadline. Like some schools like UCLA, Stanford, a few of schools have February 1st, and that's the deadline, where other schools have, like ASU does this, there's like, oh, June 30th, but they have what's called a scholarship or priority deadline of February 28th. And it's really confusing, but usually it's whatever the first date is. So if it's February 28th, even though it's not technically due till, June, you're recommended to apply, by that priority deadline. Because usually what happens is they try to fill up with everyone who applies by that date. And if they don't have any spaces left, they'll stop accepting students or put you on a wait list in hopes that, someone decides they don't want to go to the school anymore.
And I have one more question tied to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
So let's just say we want to join let's just say the class of 26 of fall. Would you advise us to start prepping around like next semester?
Yeah, so you want to apply fall of 26?
Yes.
You want to start fall of 26 or apply in the fall of 26?
Start.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say start studying for the LSAT, either this summer or in the fall, and then take it maybe in the spring.
The spring of 26?
25. Because
Okay.
you'd apply the fall of 25 if you wanted to start fall of 26.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I can keep yapping, but I don't want to steal everyone else's time. But
No, it's fine.
For the English, how soon do you get your scores? As soon as you take the LSAT?
Usually within 2 business weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
they're pretty quick. They actually, when you register, they'll have you get your score back on this date exactly.
Oh, okay, that's nice. And then, sorry, I had another follow-up question
Yeah.
about letters of recommendation.
Mhm.
So if we get letters of recommendation from people, should we have a certain format, like, or a loose template we could recommend they follow if we're planning on just kind of like keeping those with us wherever we, or wherever I guess we apply?
So what they actually can do is write just one generic letter. And how it works is you'll enter their name in your LSAC account, say I'm gonna email, you know, Dr. Watson, he's gonna be my, advice, he's gonna write my letter of recommendation. What you do is you just enter his email and he uploads the letter, and you can use that letter for any school that you want, as long as he didn't say this letter is for ASU or U of A.
Okay, and then, sorry, I was asking because I'm currently active duty, so the types of letters I would get probably aren't going to be coming from professors, so that's why I wanted to ask, like,
Yeah,
if how,
it can be from like a supervisor or a CO. You can definitely have that. They would just upload it via their, like, there's a version where you can do a paper copy and mail it to the LSAC. But yeah, they would still need to upload it via whatever their email is.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. So accredited or non-accredited law school, yeah, that's a great question. And so accredited is preferred because is what is kind of like when you go to an accredited, like ASU is an accredited college. And they have to go through separate standards and get approved by the American Bar Association. And to be able to actually be offered, or that Council on Higher Education, I think, is ASU's general one. And so what that does is they have to follow specific standards and get audited, and it shows that their quality is quality controlled. A non-accredited school doesn't have any of that to speak of, and so they can essentially do whatever they want. They could have deceptive practices. They could, hire unqualified people. They have no pretty much standards to follow. Not to say that they don't have any, but if you're an accredited school, you have to, follow Title IX and all these different, titles, and you have to follow what the American Bar Association says is a good school, and make sure, this many students pass. Some schools have lost their accreditation because, for example, certain schools, people are going into debt and they're not getting jobs, and so they're not preparing them for that, or they're hiring people who aren't, actual lawyers or know the law, and so they're not passing the bar exam. A non-accredited school doesn't give you that, and many law firms might not accept somebody with an accredited, not from a non-accredited school. And so they may see, that we have our list there, is 197, you're not one of those. And so it might look not as, thorough or regulated. So that's kind of what I would say, the drawbacks of applying going to a non-accredited one. And there's also might not be as much, like I said, standards and things as well. Now, so I do know some schools, like one just got accepted for accreditation, and it's called Jacksonville University. Like this is their second year, and last year they weren't officially accredited. They were on conditional status, and now they're going to be accredited. So if you do see a school like that, you could apply to it, but you would have to just hope that they actually will become accredited by the time that you graduate. Hopefully that answers that. Haven't gotten that question before, so that's a good question. So hopefully I answered that a little bit. It's generally better to go to accredited, just for your peace of mind as well, knowing that they have to follow, all these rules and regulations and be audited, and have, people come and actually go to the classroom and make sure they're teaching what they say they're teaching.
All right, well, I think that is it then. Well, thank you. If everyone can just thank Kyle for joining us today, and we really appreciate his time here. And then if you guys need anything from either me or him, you can feel free to contact us, make an appointment, and we'll make sure to help you guys, okay?
Yep. Have a great day, everyone. It was great getting to talk to everyone, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need any help.
All right, have a good day, everyone.